Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of FPL Hints Live on a dual stream over Twitter Spaces and my YouTube live stream. So, apologies if there's any gremlins. I'm going to give it a shot one more time. But as it's a mid-week game week, this will be a truncated FPL Hints Live. And yeah, I'm just going to just take it in my own stride. So, it won't be the usual hour and a half marathon. So yeah, apologies if you're expecting something bigger, but it'll be a relatively short one this time around. But I just thought it best to discuss a few things. If you're listening through Twitter Spaces, I would really appreciate if you are on YouTube to hop onto my stream because I'll be doing a lot of screen share on there with regards to how my team's done and just talking about upcoming predictions and whatnot as well. So let me just share the stream link in the space right now. So it's good we've got a healthy number of people in the Twitter space, but yeah, hop over to YouTube and I'll hopefully see you there. I try not to advertise it on Twitter Spaces anymore. I've just added it in here just to like get some people. Well, they didn't get the memo, so just wanted to make sure that enough people know that I just do them by YouTube stream, and eventually I won't even be doing the dual stream on Twitter Spaces either. So away we go. Right. So game week 4 first of all. Let me just do a bit of just going around here. Just go down, just make sure my screen share is working. It is indeed. Yeah, so game week 4, considering I had a captaincy blank with Mohamed Salah in a 9-0 win against Bournemouth, 75 points, 13 points above the average. With all things considered at this stage of the season, with a green arrow, I'll take it in all honesty. I probably could have been ranked in the top 300k had it not been for Kane's brace on Sunday. But Haaland, who I had instead, scored a hat trick, so it's not all doom and gloom, I guess. So I'll just go to my players now. So yeah, the back line, massive disappointment from Edison and Cancelo yet again. I'm not going to panic sell them, of course, but yeah, I was expecting at least, a clean sheet in one of the previous 2 games. Trent Alexander, a lot of people panic, sold him on a whim, and he ended up with a massive mega haul. I know there's one person who I do track who captained him. We know who that porridge eating person is. So congratulations to him for absolutely smashing it. But he's still got a long way to go in terms of catching up on rank. But yeah, Alexander Arnold, just that that haul was due in all honesty. But we'll take. I'll gladly take those points. It was a rank gain, for want of a better word. And then you've got James. James. I'm trying to make him sound exotic. Yeah, I mean, with him, just like another week, another fancy return. That's 3 returns in 4. And then you look at the fixtures. I know there's talk about how he would be effective in an RCB type role, but when he's playing in his best position, he's doing quite well. And just look at those fixtures. Look at those beautiful green block fixtures for those that are on the YouTube stream. Southampton, and then obviously West Ham, which I'd probably argue is more of a green block one now. Got Fulham, obviously got Liverpool, Palace, Wolves, Villa, Brentford, United, Brighton. Even beyond my first wild card, I've got to retain him, barring injuries. He's just been absolutely sensational. Well, I wouldn't say sensational, but he's been very good. And as you can see there, he's still owned by less than 50% of FPL managers. So yeah, I'm pleased with him. He's ticking along quite nicely. Trippier, just disappointed with, with 2 points after I benched him against City, scored the free kick, and then what happens? It's the dying minutes of the dying seconds of the game. There's a free kick right on the edge of the penalty box, and then probably due to the trajectory, he didn't want to take it, and yeah, that was a bit of a disappointment. Probably if it had been slightly further out, he probably would have attempted it, would have got it on target. But Trippier, you can't go wrong with him. Talisman for Newcastle on set pieces, and we will be keeping more clean sheets this season. So at 5.0 million, if that's still his price, he's worth his weight at the moment. I know that the alternative for this relatively template defense, some people have Perisic. I feel with Trippier, he costs £500,000 less, and also he's got the set piece threat as well. And also he's got a really interesting stat. He's attempted 4 direct free kicks for Newcastle, and he scored 3 of them. And obviously that percentage will obviously get lower as the season progresses. But yeah, I'm happy to keep him for the time being. I almost thought about selling him because the fixtures were going to turn. But then then I looked at it. Actually, the only real difficult match is the Liverpool game where I can gladly bench him. And then you've got those green block fixtures from 6 to 10 for Trippier as well. So for me, it's if I do wildcard during that time, am I going to retain him or not? Or will there be another player that emerges? So I'll see on that. And Saliba, who was actually my transfer in for game week 4, I I was in a difficult situation where I just didn't know what to do. I had 2 free transfers, and it was a tough one because I wanted to get like a Spurs defender. And interestingly, I could have sold Nico Williams for Sanchez, Davinson Sanchez, and had the right change because Sanchez is 4.4. But then I felt that actually I want an Arsenal defender more so over a Spurs defender. And if it was a Spurs one, it'd be Perisic, but didn't have the money for him. So Saliba, he got that interesting assisted goal where it came off his head, and then obviously Gabriel then headed it home. So yeah, that I don't say it's fluky. It's obviously tried scoring, came off him. Gabriel scored it, 7 points. Can't complain about that. Template midfield. Well, I say template. I look at Luis Diaz's EO. Obviously, his FPL ownership is 27%, but even in certain ranked tiers, like top 10k legendary managers, he's owned by less than 50%, if I'm not mistaken. So he almost feels like a differential. And in that 9-0 win, I know Mohamed Salah blanked, but everyone owns him. Not everyone owns Luis Diaz. And I think Diaz was the difference between me having a significant green arrow and a small green arrow. So that really was good. Martinelli against Fulham looked quite interesting. He looked quite nippy. Was a bit unlucky, but at 6.3 million or whatever he is, you couldn't ask for more. So fairly happy with him. Against Palace, I actually watched Palace against Aston Villa at Selhurst Park the week before, and their defense looked absolutely formidable. Obviously, they had Zaha in the team then as well. He just intimidated the Villa back line. I felt that at the Etihad, even then, I felt that Palace would have offered City a serious challenge to the point where, City might have potentially just won by, 1 or 2 goal differences at the very most. But yeah, they just got cut through butter, really, despite taking that 2-0 lead at the start without Zaha remarkably. And then Haaland, just out of nowhere, I say out of nowhere, comes in with a hat trick. And when I say that, it's like, he's not had many touches in the Premier League. And then in this match, he just seemed completely reformed, really, and revitalized. And yeah, that ownership, obviously 67%. But then I look at his returns. He's got a return in every game that he's played in. And, there's worry about managed minutes, which I'll talk about in the next segment. But you can't go wrong with him. He's one of those players that is he's world class, obviously, but he's able to adapt very quickly. And there was talk about Pep saying it will take him a few weeks to get up to speed just before the season began. Well, it's been a few weeks now, and if him being up to speed is scoring a hat trick against a good Palace defensive line, fair play to that. So he's clearly shown his credence as a viable captain option in the weeks ahead. And then obviously Jesus with that 1 pointer, different week would have probably got at least 1 or 2 fantasy returns, but at his price point and his ownership of being 81% owned, can't he's going to have these sorts of weeks. And then looking at the bench, so glad Danny Ward isn't the starting keeper for me. I just had a bad feeling about that Leicester team on the eve of game week 1 with all the talk of transfers and whatnot. And sadly, all he's been has just been a 1-point merchant for FPL managers. In fact, let me just go to his points. It is, yeah, look at that, 1, 1, 1, 1. So yeah, just glad he's on the bench. I wouldn't be surprised if he eventually gets rotated with Iverson or the other goalkeeper that they bought as well. But yeah, it's not looking good for Leicester right now. Completely different team to what they had even 12 to 18 months ago. And then on my bench, I actually thankfully sold Bailey, and the only real player that I could buy was De Silva. Looked around, I wanted Pascal Gross, but it would have meant I'd have to sell Edison at that moment in time, which I didn't want to against Palace, and that was just when we found out Zaha wouldn't start as well. So I thought, got to keep him in. And then yeah, De Silva was almost like a make weight transfer to get Saliba in. So Nico Williams went out, Saliba went in, and De Silva came in for Bailey, and thankfully Bailey didn't start. And yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. Got a good match, or good number of minutes against Palace, and then yeah, not in the next match. I don't know. Honestly, don't know what's going on there at Villa, but glad I've got rid of him. De Silva, with him, I just basically had him as like a sub one option at that price point. I probably, in future game weeks, I'd probably be more likely to start Pereira than I would De Silva. But with these green block fixtures, if you ever had to auto sub on, I'd hope that there's 2 points with the odd fancy return waiting for me there. So yeah, 2 points. It is what it is. Pereira against Arsenal. I did contemplate starting him at one point before I'd made my transfers, but I just felt that there was more of a potential for a clean sheet, and obviously had that mistake not happen from Gabriel, that defensive error, the shocking oddity that he did, to that led to Arsenal conceding that goal. Um, yeah, it would have been a different kettle of fish. I just thought that could have been an Arsenal clean sheet quite easily. But Pereira, I'm definitely going to start him in more matches. I started him against Brentford. In terms of the other matches that are coming up, yeah, potentially against Brighton, could start him. Maybe not against Tottenham and Chelsea, Nottingham Forest, definitely Newcastle, West Ham. So there are games where he will be my 11th player in the team. I have to rely on him. Then there's Archer. Oh, I didn't realise he got his 1 point cameo there, because I know that in the previous two games he hadn't, and I was contemplating getting Stansfield in of Fulham because he seems to be getting slightly more minutes. But oh, well done, Archer. Pleased that you got that minute there. I mean, he's not hemorrhaging the bench at that price point, so no complaints. So look, 75 points above the average, and just showing my game week history really quickly as well. So look in the chat as well. Apologies, the YouTube's the stream. Just looking in the chat as well. Cool, got some questions as well. So yeah, just looking at the traction I've had, reasonable start with 75 points, then that, oh, sorry, 74 points, then 76, then the red arrow in game week 3 with 45 points, and back to 75 point, well, back to a green arrow and 75 points in game week 4. So look, at 379k, I'll take it at this stage of the season. I think in the last 2 or 3 seasons, I was ranked a lot higher, but I'm not going to complain. Right now, even if I was ranked top million or top 1.5 million, it would be something. So it doesn't really matter with all the chips being used above us at this moment in time. So looking back now, just if I flick back to my other screen, just looking at the games ahead to game week 5. So quick preview: Palace against Brentford. You've got two teams that have shown a fair bit of fight this season. I think that could be, if Zaha had been fit, I probably could have said, Palace could potentially even win that match. I'm calling that a draw. It's a West, not a West London derby, but it's like a West-ish M20. Well, not even M25. It's a London derby, so it'll be quite a feisty affair potentially. So yeah, a draw in that one. Fulham against Brighton. Well, Brighton have just been sensational this season. Fulham, they can show that they can score goals. I'd probably say that Brighton win that match, but Fulham will probably score at Craven Cottage. And then you've got Southampton against Chelsea. Yeah, I mean, not sure what's happening at Southampton. Chelsea should be more than capable of edging a win there. Leeds against Everton. You've got to say that Leeds at home, you'd favour them against Everton, so a Leeds win there. Arsenal against Villa has to be an Arsenal win. Gerrard and Villa, from what I saw, especially over a week ago, something isn't right. And I'm not one to read body language, but I was goal side and I was looking at like Martinez, and I remember how he was and how his body language was when he was like sensational during the 2021 season for Villa. He just seemed so tense. He just seemed quite uneasy. And like, I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into that situation. They obviously went up goal up and then they ultimately lost 3-1 on the day. But when he was towards my side of the stand, he just didn't seem happy. And maybe that's a symptom to a wider problem at Aston Villa. Who knows? But that's just an observation I made. So yeah, Arsenal win. Probably, Saka's due some fantasy returns, isn't he? So maybe he could chip in there. Jesus is potential captain option there as well. Bournemouth against Wolves. I mean, Bournemouth seem to be the whipping boys, but you see it time and time again that the team that gets battered 6, 7, 8, or 9-0, the game or two after they bounce back with like a sterling performance. I'd still say it's a Wolves win, but they won't be winning 9-0. City against Forest. Again, we know how Pep can be with these midweek game weeks. Definitely have some rotation there. But yeah, that's a City win all over. And whether Haaland starts or not, I'll come on to that topic very shortly with regards to captaincy. I've made a video, in fact. I'm going to share it in the chat right now. And in this video, I speculate about, let me just get this up. I speculate on EO predictions, who will be the best captain, as well as looking at my own polling data. So if you're in the Twitter space, you'll see that very shortly. And if you're on YouTube right now, you can go to my most recent uploads and it'll be there. So yeah, and sorry, I've just completely neglected the chat. Thank you very much for those that have hit the like button and have said hello to me. So I'm literally operating 3 different platforms here with 2 hands. So it's good to see we've got a lively audience in tonight. And where was I? Back on the fixtures. Where am I? Yeah, West Ham against Spurs. I know West Ham have got all these new players. It'll take them time to gel. Normally, we see a feisty affair between these clubs as well. I'm going to call that a Spurs win. Son is due something. Whether it will come in this match, who knows? But Spurs have some very interesting momentum, so definitely a Spurs win there, even though it's at the London Stadium. Liverpool against Newcastle. That's going to be a tougher match for Liverpool than it had been in previous seasons with Newcastle's defensive unit. I think the key question here is, will Mohamed Salah get a full game, which I think he will do, more so than Haaland in his match. But is he capable? Firstly, are Liverpool capable of scoring more than a goal against this Newcastle United team, number one? And will Mohamed Salah be involved? And I think that they're 2 serious questions we all need to get answers to if you want to make a captaincy decision there. Yeah, that's a Liverpool win, but it's going to be a very close match. Don't think of it as a tub pumping win. Liverpool had that last game week, so maybe the foot will be off the accelerator. And then you've got Leicester against United in the Thursday night match. Yeah, you've got to say that's a United win. I don't know what's going on at Leicester, being unable to buy players. They've had to sell players. I believe Fofana's done a medical or is going to do a medical at Chelsea, 4.4 million option for those that want to get him in. But yeah, that has to be a United win, despite all the troubles that United have had. And I watched the match. I watched their previous match. In fact, which match was that? The Liverpool against United match. I watched that on TV, completely different outfit. Then I listened to the United match on the radio against Southampton. Sorry, just had a bit of a mind blank there. And from the radio commentary, it just seemed that was a completely different United team. And then Fernandes obviously got the goal in that match, but it wasn't like off the back of the Liverpool win. that there was that euphoria and the drive. It was a completely different United setup, completely different team, and perhaps they were lucky to score that goal. But hey, a win's a win. They grinded it out. But in this match, I think they'll probably also dig in against despite a transitional Leicester team. I think they'll be more than capable of winning this match, just with Ward in goal, with all those ones in the fantasy net as well. So that has to be United win, whoever starts. I doubt the news. I think Casemiro might start this match potentially, probably not with Anthony, but even with their current crop of players, they're more than capable of beating this Leicester team. They should do, and if they don't, then that's not a good sign. So coming on to captaincy now. So for those that are in the stream, I kind of want to share this with you as well. Let me just get my poll up. In fact, if you're in the stream actually, you can just go to my recently uploaded videos and you can see the video on there about my captaincy. But in a nutshell, I've looked at the polling data that I've ran for my own captaincy poll, and I've basically then ran another poll where I said, that's great, that's the best captaincy option, but who's going to get the least amount of minutes between those captaincy options? So I don't, spoiler alert if you're going to watch that video, but please do. Haaland was the EO captain with like over 60% of the vote in the poll. Sorry, not the EO captain. I like the best. He was considered the best captain by those that voted. But at the same time, the same people that, well, not the same people. Then in the second poll, the vote said actually he's the most likely to get the least amount of minutes. So that's a dilemma that we've got on our hands. That is he going to start a full match? I personally think he will not get a full match due to the hints that we've been given with regards to wanting to manage his fitness. They don't want him to obviously get injured with the Champions League around the corner as well. Will he get completely rested? I don't know. Yeah, he might get like an hour's worth of football, but then would you rather captain someone who gets an hour's worth of football against Nottingham Forest or a full match, let's say Jesus against Fulham, or no, Jesus against Villa, or Salah against Newcastle? And I'm, from my perspective, like I've alluded to in the video as well, that it will definitely be a split captaincy. Like last week, we had a very unique situation where the captaincy was relatively split, despite Mohamed Salah being a clear choice against Bournemouth, and despite him blanking, he was the clear captaincy choice. But what was interesting was that among the elite managers, his EO was like 190%, whereas with the other ranked tiers, his EO was 110, 120, I think 140% in one of the ranked tiers, but not above 150. I was predicting 150, 160 across multiple ranked tiers. So I think that that's something that's worth factoring in as well, that it will be completely split. I have a funny feeling that the elite managers might trust Mohamed Salah again. They'll probably say, they've got that muscle memory in their mind that this is the Mohamed Salah that's got them all those double-digit returns as a captain since 2017. So I think that Haaland will be the most popular captaincy option overall, just about. But among the legendary managers, Mohamed Salah and Haaland will be very close in terms of who they're going to captain. I guess what I'm saying is it'll be a split captaincy, and you could I don't say you can get away captaining whoever you want, but like, when it's a split captaincy, you've got to basically work out all the variables and then decide, ultimately which one you're going to take a risk on. I feel that when there isn't a standout captaincy in FPL, there is more like maneuverability to take. I don't say a punt captaincy, but like the second choice and third choice become viable options, especially when, in this case, Haaland, there are concerns that his minutes might be managed. So that's something that you want to decide, that is it worth taking a risk on him. I personally haven't decided yet. I could easily captain Haaland, I could captain Salah, I could captain Jesus as well. But yeah, let's see what happens. Apart from that, I'll come on to a few questions that have come in through my DMs in the chat, and then I'll wrap it up. It won't be a long one, like I've said for tonight. But before I go to the questions, I see that we've got just under 100 people on the Twitter space there right now. And you can stay in the space. I'm not going to force you to leave it. But I've got one favor if you're in the Twitter space. Go to my YouTube channel. It's in my profile. It's on my timeline. You can't miss it. And just hit the subscribe button. That's all. That's all I want from you. You can stay in the space. I'm doing this space just so that you're not neglected. But yeah, just subscribe and hit the like button as the YouTubers say. So let me just come on to some questions here. So question from Wasim: what do you make of those burning or not using a free transfer this game week? Yeah, that's a really good question. I've seen a very very respected FPL manager, an elite manager, doing that. In fact, back to back now, and I was in a situation where I almost burnt my transfer as well. I think the problem is that because they've reduced the prices so much, we've been able to afford pretty much the players that we've wanted from the get-go. And if it's the templates become easy to get early on, right? So what it basically means is that there'll be game weeks where you'd literally have to make a goalkeeper move if you really had to, switch out a 4.5 midfielder, a 4.5 striker, as opposed to burning a transfer. I think every situation is different. Like in my case, I would really prefer not to burn a transfer. I'd hope that maybe there is a weak link. You've got to firstly, let's completely redefine what we think of as a transfer. That a transfer should be a luxury move, and that you should only be making a transfer if there's a fire raging within your team. And you'd hope that at the very most that happens once every game week, right? You've got a player that's injured, player that's suspended, a player that's out of form, you can address that issue. Right now, the template, despite it being a bit wobbly in game week 3, it is very strong. You can't, you just look at you can go to livefpl.net's EO, and just a bit of a breaking news on that you used to be able to check combination ownerships on livefpl.net just for the top 10k. I put in a feature request with the Ragaboli, and he's actually done it now so that you can do it for multiple rank tiers. So even within your own local rank tier, and even for the legendary managers, you can see what the combined ownership is for certain players. But even the most popular owned players, it's like literally 99%, 99.95%. So they're very high owned. So I can see why it's being burnt, but I'd say that you don't want to make a transfer for the sake of a transfer. But then if your team's doing well, then let it be. But do look for those. Like one example I can give right now, Stansfield seems to be getting more minutes than Archer. If you've literally got no transfer to make, then surely that's a potential option for you, for instance. Other than that, then yeah, you're kind of clutching straws, and I get why you'd want to burn transfers. And then another question: would you go Maddison to Gross this game week? Well, I don't know what the injury update is on Maddison at the moment. I know he's got United. I'd say that Gross is showing himself to be a very interesting player. His heat map, from what I saw from the previous week as well, looked very interesting. I don't think he's on penalties now. I think it's McAllister who's been taking penalties of late for Brighton, which is a bit of a blow because Gross did used to take them. But if you want to unlock funds, and if you can trust this Brighton team, especially with their early run of form, definitely worth considering Gross as an option. I mean, another option for Maddison could be Rodrigo or Gross. Whoever you pick, really. There's quite a few options in that price range. But if there are questions on Maddison being unavailable against United, yeah, definitely consider selling him for him. Will Zaha play the next match? I have no idea. I have no idea on his his injury status. Should I stick to Son or move to Bruno or Sterling for a -4? It's just been unfortunate that the Golden Boot winner of the previous season hasn't really done much, right? it's not like he's a bad player overnight. It's just he's been unlucky. Or you could say it's just the way that Spurs have been playing, with Perisic being an outlet, Kulusevski being an outlet once again this season, and obviously Kane being Kane, and maybe I don't want to say Son's being isolated in those attacking um, situations, but and he got subbed off early as well, which wasn't a good sign. But I'd if I had him, I'd be losing patience with him, absolutely. But would I sell him for Bruno? I would not. Would I sell him for Sterling? Potentially, but the question is for a -4 hit. Yeah, I wouldn't. Not for a -4. Try maybe give him one more chance, but if you're able to go from Son to KDB potentially without a -4, I think that could be an option. Have 2 transfers and no major issues. Would you do Foden to Gundogan or Diaz? Again, I don't know if you've got a triple up of if you've got a double up of City or double up of Liverpool, but with those options, Gundogan, it was a bit annoying that he got he started from the bench against Palace. You would have expected him to have started, but maybe the good sign now is he'll start midweek. Or Diaz. I personally like Diaz, to be honest with you. Like Diaz, he is not obviously going to fill the void that Mane has left overnight. Mane's absence is greatly missed. I think it's very clear with how Liverpool have played this season, definitely. But at 8.0 or 8.1 million, Diaz offers exceptional value. And I'm not one for XG, right? I really, I couldn't care less about deep diving into data. But when you've got a team like Liverpool who are challenging for the title, and you've got a player, an attacker in their team who's like less than 8 million, sorry, less than like 10 million at 8 something, you've got to consider getting him in, especially if you've got the funds. Makes total sense. So if I had a choice between the two, I see the merits of Gundogan, but it has to be Diaz between the two for me. Any thoughts on Alvarez? Yeah, I wouldn't buy him. Yeah, he might get a start possibly during the midweek, but he's not going to get regular starts. Absolutely not. I would not buy him. You're just wasting a transfer literally there. So what game week do you think the template may be broken or at least dented? Seen lots of frustrated managers with Ramsdale, Cancelo, James. Well, James, they shouldn't really be frustrated with James. He's returned in 3 games in 4. Cancelo, you'd expect him not to blank 3 game weeks in a row. And Ramsdale, it was just unfortunate with Gabriel's cock up on Saturday. So I feel that right now the template is extremely strong. And I know that there is this interesting turn of fixtures that takes place around game week 8 and the international break as well. And maybe that's the time it will turn. But right now, it looks quite strong. I think what will happen is this, that if Mohamed Salah continues to blank in these upcoming games, let me just get them on screen. Sorry, I've just completely neglected my YouTube stream audience once again. So in these fixtures here, well, firstly, we see that he's only blanked in 2 games this season at home, and he's returned in the away games. But like Newcastle at home, capable of getting a fancy return. Everton away, capable of getting a fancy return. Wolves at home, capable of getting a fancy return. Ex-club Chelsea away, okay, tricky, but it's not impossible getting a fancy return there. Brighton at home, okay, that'll be tricky, but not impossible. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. That's 5 fixtures. If he doesn't get 2 fantasy returns in those next 5 games, I think his ownership's going to just get lower and lower and lower. So right now on official FPL, he's owned by 55%. If he blanks against Newcastle, he'll dip below 50%. He blanks in the other game, he'll dip further. Once Mohamed Salah no longer becomes a template option, that will unlock funds and it will completely change the template. It literally takes one premium player to fail and really lacking form, and then it goes basically. So I think Mohamed Salah will be, and I don't want to say that the likes of Robert Ducky and Andy Martin predicted like no Salah, but I kind of feel that with them in particular, that they were ahead of the crowd, dare I say it, because like I don't want to like give too much away as well, because I've silently in the corner agreed with them as well that he is not the same asset that he used to be. He is not, and I've looked at the data as well, in different like sets of data. I've even looked at his EO data, believe it or not, from the start of game week 1 last season to now, because with that, the EO data that I see, that is a true reflection of form, in my opinion, more so than hypothetical XG and all this stuff. And his EO, again, without giving too much away, it's just like it hasn't nosedived, but it's not as strong as it was this time last year for obvious reasons. He's not scoring the same amount of goals and getting the consistent returns on a back-to-back basis. So yeah, Mohamed Salah, I think, will ultimately be a potential weak link in that. Um, there are some more questions coming in, but I don't want this stream to run massively over. I'm going to take one question that's come in from the DM as well. You were talking about your prediction for this week's games, but I missed what you said for Fulham against Brighton. Would you be able to repeat it? Yeah, so I think that Fulham are more than capable of winning, and not winning, scoring against Brighton. But I think Brighton just, if they, if they can repeat the form that they've showed literally from the start of the season in that match, I think that's not an easy Brighton win, but they're capable of beating Fulham at Craven Cottage, absolutely. But at the same time, you've got Mitrovic there, so he like same in the Arsenal match. Mitrovic scoring, but then like a Pascal Gross or a Trossard getting enough goals. With that Fulham defense just doesn't look good enough to me, if I'm perfectly honest. Hold on, I've got some stuff in the mentions as well. What's this all about here? I've got FPL Jack. So, oh, that's something about my captaincy polls. Any news on Zinchenko? Nope, I don't know anything on Zinchenko. Let me just go here. Right, I think I'm going to wrap up now. So before I wrap up, I can see we've got a good number of people in the Twitter space. I'll say this one more time. You don't have to go to my YouTube channel just yet, but click on the YouTube link and hit the subscribe button. I've got lots of videos on YouTube, actually. I've got stuff on captaincy polls. I've got stuff on pep talks. I've got, which is my like TED Talks, you could say, sort of like mini versions, but a bit not as good. I've got other stuff on my worst game week. I've got stuff on the advice that experts won't tell you about. So there's a fair bit of information there. So on that note, I'm going to wrap it up quite early. And all the best for game week 5. Just that captaincy decision. Whatever you do, for goodness sake, pick the right captain. Take care and all the best, everyone. Have a lovely game week 5. Bye.